Oh hi. Girona, the city in the northeast of Spain, in autonomous community Catalonia, the center of the province Girona of the same name and a Catalan comarca Girones. The population for 2020, 103,369 people. The historical kernel of the city, which well remained since the Middle Ages, attracts a significant amount of tourists to Girona. At Iberra existed as fortress on the road to Gallia, from which traces of walls remained. At Romans, the city under a name Hera, and Latin Gerunda. At all times was considered as considerable military point, and it is often mentioned in the history of wars with Moors, whose stay is demonstrated by the remain terms here. In 797 years Girona was under the power of Moors. At Charles the Great I passed from Moors to Christians twice. In 785 and 797 years. However, not for long. Continuing Arab domination had no considerable impact on architecture and the culture of the city. After liberation of Girona from Moors, the city became the capital of the county, which was a part of the Spanish brand of the Franksky kingdom. At the end of 8th-9th centuries, Girona was used by Franks as base for preparation of campaigns on the territories of Spain occupied by Moors. Later Girona conceded this role to Barcelona. In 878 the county Girona was attached to the county Barcelona, having kept, however, till the 13th century autonomy. The county Girona, one of 14 initial Catalan counties. In 1351 the King of Aragon granted to the eldest son a title of the Duke Gironsky. Since then, the Prince of Girona, an official title of the successor of the Aragonese crown. In the 14th, 16th centuries, one of the most successful cities of the Western Mediterranean with considerable Jewish community. In 1348, as well as many cities of Spain, Girona was devastated by Black Death, plague epidemic. Girona of 25 times I was exposed to a siege, but it was taken only 7 times. In the 17th, 18th centuries several times I passed to France, and again I came back to Spain. Strongly I suffered Girona during the next war with France in 1793. By 1809, when after a siege the city was taken by Napoleonic troops, in Girona there were only 4,500 inhabitants. At Napoli in Girona it was announced by the capital of the district of the Ter, and in 1833 I became the capital of the Spanish district of Girona. Economic recovery of the city began with the middle of the 19th century. The new industrial enterprises were under construction, streets equipped with modern conveniences. In 1886 in Girona there was a street lit with electric lamps. From 1980th years Girona becomes the tourist center. On October 4, 2017 Girona became the first city which officially tore communications with official Spain, the royal court and the government of the country. Sites: the Unyar River divides the city into 2 parts. On the left coast the modern city, on right the historic center with well-remained medieval building was located. The main attraction of the old city is the cathedral, Gothic Cathedral of Girona. Street: Virgin Mary's Cathedral, located at the Cathedral Square. It is the second largest, after St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Odinthony Cathedral of Europe. The nave of cathedral constructed in 1416 by Guillaume Beaufort. Height of 35 m and 23 m wide. The biggest in the world, a Gothic cathedral nave. All parts of cathedral are constructed in Gothic style, except for the western facade, which ladder, the portal and a window rows are works of Catalan Baroque. In cathedral, the silver altar barrier decorated with gemstones and also the alabaster throne of Charles the Great standing behind an altar are remarkable. At cathedral, the museum, among which main exhibits, a woven carpet, creation of the world. The 11th-12th century. A statue of the King Peter IV ceremony. The 14th century. The copy of the Comment on the Apocalypse, Beatolij Banskoga works. In the museum also sculptures and fragments of paintings of the Romance period are placed. Plevnaya Street of the Old City, Rambla de la Libertad. With the building of the 19th century, which appeared on the place of the city wall destroyed during a siege by Napoleonic troops. Well remained fragments of a city wall can be seen on Arkakaskaya Street. On the same street there is a church of Església de Sant Pere de Galligans. The 12th century. In the church, which is a part of the ancient Benedictine monastery of St. Piet, 4 apses and 3 naves. The St. Piet's monastery, founded in the 10th century, one of the most considerable constructions of Romance architecture in Catalonia. In the territory of the monastery, the Museum of Archaeology works. One more ancient church, Església de Santa Fili, is built in the 14th century over graves of patrons of the city, Saints Narcissa and Felix. Plates of 8 sarcophagi of the Roman time are walled in apse walls near an altar of church. To the south from the cathedral, along Carrer de la Força Street, the Jewish quarter reconstructed in the recent past was located. In medieval Girona, the large Jewish community, the second largest, lived in Catalonia after Barcelonian. The community possessed own Kabbalistic school. Among the most famous representatives of this community there are Rabbis Nachmanid, Jean Gerondi, Nissim Gerondi, Srakia Ha, Levi Gerondi. Nowadays in a quarter there is a museum of the Jewish history. The Museum of History of Girona operates on Carrer de la Força Street, in the building of the Capuchin monastery of the 18th century. Among exhibits of the museum there are ancient musical instruments and scientific devices. Also Street. Nicholas Chapel of the 12th century with arrangement of 3 apses, unusual to architecture of the time, and also the Arab baths constructed in Romance style. A remarkable the 12th century. In the former episcopal palace there is a museum of art with an extensive collection of works of art of the 10-20 centuries. In the museum in particular, carved jewelry and a silver altar of the 10th century from church are presented to Sant Pere de Rhodes. The wooden bar of the 12th century painted with figures of monks from Crulius. Among other sites of Girona. The area of Catalonia located on the bridge through the Onyar River. Houses on the Onyar River. Železný Bridge. Monastery San Dominic. Gate San Cristofol. Tower Gironella. San Nicola Church. St. Daniel's Monastery in Girona. St. Philip's Church in Girona. Palafiral Exhibition Complex in Girona. Independence Square in Girona. One of main squares of the city, which name reminds of events of the Pyrenean War and a bloody siege of the city by troops of the Marshal of France Louis Gabriel Sieuch in 1808-1809. The area square in a form is bordered with buildings of strict proportions with trade arcades in the first floors. She is built on the place where once there was St. Augustine's monastery. In the center of the area there is a sculptural group devoted to defenders of Girona. On the square the cafe and restaurants are located. It is the popular venue of festive actions. At the beginning of the 20th century in Girona lived and owned Gaudi. Rafael Mazza worked. Museums. Museum of Art of Girona. The Museum of Archaeology in Girona. Museum of History of the City. The Museum of the Jewish History in Girona. The Museum of Cinema in Girona. Transport. Girona Costa Brava Airport. Sport. In Girona Alfonso Serran. 1535-1575. The Spanish priest, the chess player and the chess theorist. The participant of the international tournament, the first in the history of chess, died. From the known sports clubs in the city are based football and basketball, called in honor of the city. Holidays. The Fair of a Sacred Narcissus, the patron of the city, is celebrated annually on October 29. The holiday has religious character, and in the majority of other cities of Spain there are similar days of remembrance of patrons of the city. Time of Flowers, the second traditional holiday in this area. It is celebrated on the third week of May and has tourist character as it attracts many people from all corners of Spain. The holiday arose in 1955 when before St. Dominic's Church the group of feminists held the flower show, which further became too traditional. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.